When I started working with people and their money over 16 years ago, I just kind of naturally moved towards people who had their own businesses, entrepreneurs and business owners. And I guess I did that because I was also still am one of those. And I realized and figured I could help them not only grow their business, but also show them how to grow their money, which is kind of like a double life because most financial advisors, almost all financial advisors, just kind of focus on let me help you grow your money. But I figured and realized that it actually doesn't take much to grow money effectively, and that extra time you put into growing money, you could actually put into growing your business, making more money, getting a raise. And it was the combination of the two, increasing your income without increasing effort, and then taking that saved income and growing it. That was really the way to secure and get that freedom in your future and your life. So over the last week or two, I interviewed two clients from about 3 years ago who I helped grow their business. And the one thing that was clear about both of the interviews is they couldn't really tell their friends about it. Because when they told their friends about what happened to their income, in one case, a client of mine, Adam Boswell, growing his income from under 100,000 to the mid seven figures in 3 years, like you can't really say that to people because it doesn't show up as being believable. It actually shows up as being unbelievable. And when something shows up as being unbelievable, it shows up as a lie because we want to believe the things we want to believe. And if you hear something that falls outside of that belief system, or I call it your belief hula hoop, anything that falls outside of your belief hula hoop, what you believe to be true, that just shows up as not true or a lie or unbelievable. So he was just joking to me off air how he can't really share his results, and neither can my other client in some ways because it's just so unbelievable. This leads to the theme of this week because something is happening that is unbelievable to a lot of people. And the unbelievable thing that's happening for a lot of people is this thing called deflation. And deflation is winning. And how can deflation possibly be winning after the Fed has printed $3 trillion plus and the US government has run into deficits of an additional $6 trillion. So right there between the two, there's about $9 trillion. And I'm sure there's a hidden trillion here or there that I don't know about since 2008. And yet we do not have inflation. Now, I don't want to get into why we're having deflation right now and not inflation. What I want to talk about and point out is that deflation is in fact winning. And let me show you why I think that, and show you how that will impact things over the next coming days, weeks, months, years. So the first place I kind of noticed deflation was winning is with the 30-year Treasury, the US government Treasury. At the beginning of the year, the first day of this year, it was yielding 4%. And here we are halfway through August, and it's yielding 3.12%. That's a fall in yield of about 21%. That's pretty big, and that is absolutely deflationary. Then I looked at the 10-year US Treasury, and that fell from 3% to 2.32%. That's even a bigger fall. That fell 23%. But now check this out. Here's the 7-year Treasury, and that actually went up in yield. That went from just below 1% to 1.05%. So that actually increased in yield 6%. So the question is, what's going on here? Why is the yield going down on these long-term bonds, the 30-year and the 10-year? And why is the yield going up on the 7-year? And why should you even care? So let's look to the charts to see what they're telling us. So this first chart I want to show you is the 30-year yield. This is showing you the actual yield on the 30-year Treasury. And if you look over on the right, you see numbers that at the bottom start at 30 and go up to 39. If you move that decimal point over to the left one place, that will tell you the actual yield. So as of today, the yield on the 30-year Treasury is about 3.12%. When the yield goes down, that means the price is going up. the price goes up on something when more people are buying it. So people are buying the 30-year Treasury, so much so this year that the yield has collapsed 21%. So why would people be buying the yield? Because they actually think there's going to be a lower yield in the future. That's the only reason people buy it, because they're more concerned, and they buy the long-term bond, the 30-year, because that will give them a higher yield than, say, the 10-year would, or the 7-year, or the 5-year, the 2-year, or the 90-day. So people betting with their own money are saying, hey, we think deflation is coming in front of us, and so we're going to lock in a 3% yield on the 30-year to protect ourselves. And the same thing's going on with the 10-year Treasury. If you look at this now, if you look at this price chart here, it's fallen 23%. Again, the same thing. People are saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to lock in 2.32% for 10 years. So more people have actually moved into the 10-year recently than the 30-year. And what's going on in the 7-year? People are actually moving out of it. When you see the yield going up, that means the price is going down. The only time a price goes down is when there's more sellers than buyers, and there's more sellers in these shorter term bonds than there are in the larger term. Again, what this means is people are saying, hey, I got to lock in these yields before they go lower. And you may think a 10-year, if I go back to the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield of 2.32%, actually it doesn't show the actual yield. It shows it over here, but again, you have to move the decimal point. You might say, hey, that's pretty low. There's no way the yield can go lower. But check this out. France's 10-year Treasury is at 1.4%. Germany's 10-year Treasury is at 1%. Japan's 10-year Treasury is at 0.5%. The whole euro area is at 0.4%. The only developed markets in the world that are above the US's 10-year Treasury is the UK, which is just barely above at 2.5%, and Australia, which is way above at 3.37%. So basically the whole world except Australia is at or below the 10-year Treasury in the US. So if you're in Germany or France or Europe or Asia, you're going to put some of your money in US Treasuries because it's yielding higher. What this means is we've got deflation in front of us for sure. Now, how long the deflation stays, I don't know. But deflation from the Fed, or the Fed hates deflation even more than inflation. And the reason is because the Fed works for the banks, and the banks have trillions of dollars of loans out there. And if there's deflation out there, it costs more. It's more difficult to pay back the money that you borrowed. That's why banks like to have about a 2% inflation rate each year. It's slightly easier each year to pay back your loan. Now, what's the takeaway from all this? What does it mean to you? So there's two big takeaways right now that are at least obvious. One is yields are going lower, okay? And that means deflation's in front of us. That's going to help housing. And if you go pull up a price chart of residential housing, you will almost immediately notice that the price of housing stocks is going up. So the first thing is it's going to help housing because it's going to lower the mortgage rates on housing. So get ready to refinance or finance if it's your first house one last time. The second thing is that's probably going to push the US dollar higher. Like the US dollar, hate the US dollar, it is going higher against the euro, the yen, and the yuan, the three other major currencies in the world. So the big takeaway, get ready to refinance, and the dollar is actually going higher. Hey guys, that's just another step towards your freedom with money, your future, and your life. Until next time, this is RC Peck.